The Beatles, worst to best albums.
The Beatles, the greatest band of all time. Legends, innovators, cultural shapers. But even the greatest have to have a worst and a best. Today, we're doing the impossible, ranking every single official Beatles studio album and single from worst to best. This is our honest, detailed, and completely biased list. So grab a cuppa, settle in, and let the debates begin. Before we dive headfirst into this monumental task, a quick word from our side. If you're loving these deep dives, please hit that like button. We're currently at 1,168 subscribers and absolutely buzzing to hit 1,500. Every like, every share, and especially every subscribe helps us keep these deep dives coming. So join the community and ring that notification bell. Now let's get into it. The studio albums, from good to God tier. We're going to start our journey through the discography with the full studio albums. This is where the band truly evolved, pushed boundaries, and ultimately defined an era. So let's kick things off with our pick for the bottom of the album pile. Number 13, Yellow Submarine. Now, before you come for us in the comments, let's be clear. This isn't a bad collection of music. It's just not a good Beatles album. Yellow Submarine is first and foremost a soundtrack, and a rather strange one at that. Released in 1969, the first side features 6 songs from the band, including the whimsical title track, which had already been released on Revolver 2 years prior. Of the new songs, only 4 were previously unreleased by the Beatles, and only 2 of those, the infectious Hey Bulldog and the charming All Together Now, were truly standout new compositions. George Harrison's contributions, Only a Northern Song and It's All Too Much, while interesting, feel more like experiments or deep cuts rather than polished album tracks. The second side is entirely dedicated to George Martin's orchestral score from the movie, a beautiful and complex piece of work in its own right, but entirely instrumental and not performed by the Beatles. The album feels less like a cohesive, groundbreaking work from the Fab Four and more like a rushed companion piece to the film released out of contractual obligation. It's an interesting historical artifact, a glimpse into their lesser-known work, but when you're ranking the masterpieces of the greatest band of all time, a half-baked soundtrack, however charming, simply has to be at the bottom.
Number 12, Beatles for Sale, 1964. Moving up slightly, we come to a true Beatles album, but one that is often unfairly viewed through the lens of its creation. Released in late 1964, Beatles for Sale arrived at a time when the band was completely and utterly exhausted. They had just finished a grueling world tour, were constantly writing, recording, and performing, and were being rushed back into the studio to meet release deadlines. This relentless pace shows in the album's material. The band only had enough creative energy to write 8 original songs, with the remaining 6 tracks being covers of their favorite rock and roll and R&B numbers. Don't get me wrong, those covers are fantastic. Their rendition of Chuck Berry's rock and roll music or Carl Perkins' Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby are electrifying, showcasing their raw power as a live band. However, the original compositions, while containing gems like the reflective I'm a Loser and the wonderfully catchy 8 Days a Week, lacked a consistent creative spark and ambitious experimentation that would define their later work. The album feels less like a step forward and more like a necessary pit stop, a moment where even the mighty Beatles had to catch their breath. It's a great listen for its energy and a testament to their roots, but when compared to their truly revolutionary efforts, it feels like they were simply going through the motions to get a record out on time.
Number 11, Please Please Me, 1963. From exhaustion to exuberance, we leap back to their debut, Please Please Me from 1963. This album is a historical document, a raw, energetic blast that captured the sound of a band on the cusp of changing the world. Recorded in literally one day, it's essentially their live set, straight from the Cavern Club, polished just enough by George Martin to be palatable for a wider audience. You can hear the hunger, the excitement, and the sheer joy in every track. Hits like I Saw Her Standing There and Twist and Shout, a cover that they absolutely made their own, are pure, unadulterated rock and roll, showcasing their incredible vocal harmonies and tight musicianship. However, despite its undeniable charm and historical significance, it also shows a band still finding its feet in terms of songwriting originality. Like Beatles for Sale, it features a significant number of covers, 6 in fact, alongside their self-penned tracks. While the originals are fantastic, the album as a whole is a snapshot of nascent talent rather than fully realized genius. It's the blueprint, the exciting beginning, but not yet the fully constructed cathedral of sound they would later build. It's essential listening to understand their origins, but strictly on an artistic ranking, its simplicity and reliance on covers place it here.
10. With the Beatles, 1963. Hot on the heels of their debut, With the Beatles dropped later in 1963, a mere 7 months later. This album represents a subtle but significant step forward for the band. Visually, it gave us the iconic, stark, black and white cover photo, a more sophisticated look than their smiling debut. Musically, it shows a band growing in confidence and songwriting prowess. While it still contains 5 covers, including a spirited Roll Over Beethoven and a soulful Money That's What I Want, the original compositions are stronger and more numerous than on Please Please Me. Tracks like It Won't Be Long with its call and response vocals, All My Loving, a truly beautiful McCartney ballad, and the Ringo-sung I Wanna Be Your Man, which they actually gave to the Rolling Stones first, showcase their development. George Harrison even gets his first songwriting credit with Don't Bother Me. This album solidified their sound and their commercial dominance, proving they weren't a one-hit wonder. It's a more consistent and slightly more adventurous effort than its predecessor, marking them as serious contenders for lasting stardom. It's the sound of a band refining their craft, and while not yet reaching the experimental heights, it's undeniably excellent pop rock.
Number 9. Help, 1965. By 1965, the Beatles were global superstars, and their album Help reflects a band grappling with the immense pressures of fame. The title track itself, famously written by John Lennon, was a genuine cry for help, a sign of his growing disillusionment. This album is split somewhat, acting as both a soundtrack to their second movie and a collection of increasingly sophisticated pop songs. The first 7 tracks were featured in the film, including the iconic title song and the brilliant Ticket to Ride, which showed a clear progression in their musical arrangements, moving beyond simple pop structures. But it's on the second side where we really see the true evolution taking place. This side contains some absolute masterpieces, most notably Paul McCartney's Yesterday, a timeless acoustic ballad that broke new ground for the band, introducing string arrangements that would become a hallmark of their later work. We also get the beautifully melancholic You've Got to Hide Your Love Away from John, which many speculate was about Brian Epstein's struggles with his hidden sexuality, an incredibly empathetic and mature piece. Despite still being somewhat constrained by soundtrack duties, Help is a pivotal album. It marks the moment where the band truly started to transition from a pure pop group to something more profound and experimental, laying the groundwork for the sonic revolutions that were just around the corner. Number 8, A Hard Day's Night from 1964. Our number 8 spot goes to an album that truly captured the joyous explosion of Beatlemania, A Hard Day's Night from 1964. What sets this album apart, and why it ranks higher than Help for us, is its sheer consistency and the fact that every single song was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. This was a bold statement of their songwriting prowess. It served as the soundtrack to their groundbreaking debut film, and the songs perfectly matched the movie's energy, wit, and frantic pace. From the iconic opening chord of the title track to the infectious energy of Can't Buy Me Love, this album is a masterclass in upbeat, melodic, and perfectly crafted pop rock. Lennon dominates much of the songwriting, with highlights like the introspective If I Fell and the punchy You Can't Do That. McCartney provides equally strong tracks like And I Love Her, a beautiful, understated ballad that showcases his growing versatility. A Hard Day's Night is the sound of the Beatles at their commercial peak, confident, joyous, and utterly in control of their craft. It's a pure, unadulterated dose of early Beatles magic, showing them as a songwriting force that was simply untouchable.
Number 7, Magical Mystery Tour, 1967.
From the raw energy of early Beatlemania, we now plunge into the technicolor world of psychedelia with Magical Mystery Tour, released in late 1967. This album, originally released as a double EP in the UK and a full LP in the US, perfectly encapsulates the wild, experimental spirit of the post-Sgt. Pepper era. It was also the soundtrack to their notoriously baffling film, but the music itself is a glorious journey. From the whimsical sing-along title track to the mind-bending complexity of I Am the Walrus, this album is a sonic kaleidoscope. It shows the Beatles fully embracing studio experimentation, with George Martin once again acting as their fearless co-pilot. Strawberry Fields Forever, with its dreamlike manipulated sounds and George Martin's ingenious blend of two different takes, is a landmark in recording history. Paul's contributions, like Fool on the Hill and Penny Lane, are pure melodic genius, painting vivid pictures with their lyrics and arrangements. George Harrison's Blue Jay Way is a haunting, atmospheric track that perfectly captures the album's surreal vibe. While sometimes seen as less cohesive than Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour is undeniably adventurous, packed with incredible songs, and solidifies their position as masters of studio artistry. It's a wild, inventive ride that fully embraces the freedom they had earned.
Number 6, Let It Be, 1970. Now we arrive at an album shrouded in myth and controversy, an album that many initially dismissed as a messy end, but which, through the lens of history and recent reevaluations, has gained immense respect. Let It Be, released in 1970. This was technically their final album to be released, though much of it was recorded before Abbey Road. The original concept was to get back to basics, recording live in the studio without overdubs, a stark contrast to their highly produced psychedelic work. The sessions, documented in the Let It Be film and later extensively in the Get Back documentary, famously showed a band disintegrating. Yet the music that emerged is breathtaking. The raw energy of Get Back, the soulful gospel of Let It Be, the rocking Dig-a-Pony, and the powerful Two of Us showcase a band still capable of incredible synergy. Harrison shines with I Me Mine and the uplifting For You Blue. The controversial Phil Spector was brought in to salvage the recordings, adding his famous wall of sound to tracks like The Long and Winding Road, which famously angered Paul McCartney. However, later versions, particularly Let It Be Naked, proved the strength of the original recordings. Let It Be is an album of raw beauty, of hope amidst despair, and a powerful, poignant farewell from the greatest band in history. It's a bittersweet but essential listen, proving their genius even in their final, fractured moments.
Number 5, Rubber Soul, 1965. Entering our top 5, we find an album that marks a seismic shift in the Beatles' sound, Rubber Soul, released in late 1965. This is the album where the Beatles truly began to evolve from pop stars into serious artists. The songwriting became more introspective, the arrangements more sophisticated, and the lyrical themes more complex. John Lennon delivers some of his most personal work with Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, famously featuring George Harrison's sitar, introducing Indian influences into Western pop music. McCartney offers melodic gems like Michelle and the melancholic I'm Looking Through You. Ringo's What Goes On is a rare co-writing credit, and Harrison's Think for Yourself shows his growing confidence as a songwriter. The album's cover itself, with the distorted, stretched faces, signals a new era. Rubber Soul is the sound of a band breaking free from the demands of constant touring and embracing the limitless possibilities of the studio. It's a cohesive, brilliant collection of folk rock, pop, and burgeoning psychedelic elements, proving that pop music could be intelligent, artistic, and deeply resonant. It's a landmark album that bridged the gap between their early pop years and their groundbreaking psychedelic era, a true masterpiece in its own right. Number 10. Number 4, Revolver, 1966. From the introspective brilliance of Rubber Soul, we explode into the revolutionary soundscape of Revolver, released in 1966. This album is often cited as the definitive psychedelic rock album and a turning point in popular music. The Beatles, free from touring, fully embraced the studio as an instrument, with George Martin as their fearless sonic architect.
Every track on Revolver is a mini masterpiece, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible in popular music. John Lennon's Tomorrow Never Knows, with its backward tapes, extreme vocal processing, and tape loops, was utterly unlike anything heard before. Paul McCartney's Eleanor Rigby combined a haunting vocal melody with a stark string octet, a classical arrangement that felt utterly modern. George Harrison truly comes into his own as a songwriter with the biting Taxman and the spiritual Love You Too, featuring a prominent sitar. Ringo even gets his moment with the cheerful Yellow Submarine. The album is packed with innovation, backward guitars on I'm Only Sleeping, multi-track vocals, and pioneering use of close miking. Revolver is audacious, experimental, and incredibly diverse, showcasing the band's unparalleled creativity and their fearless willingness to challenge conventions. It's a sonic explosion that solidified their status as true artistic pioneers.
Number 3, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967. Taking our number 3 spot is an album that defined an entire era and is often called the greatest album ever made, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, released in 1967. This wasn't just an album, it was an event, a cultural phenomenon, a concept album that created an alter ego band allowing the Beatles to experiment without the burden of their own colossal fame. The ambition is breathtaking. From the opening fanfare of the title track, seamlessly transitioning into With a Little Help from My Friends, to the epic cinematic sweep of A Day in the Life, Sgt. Pepper is a continuous, immersive experience. George Martin's contributions as an arranger and producer are absolutely integral here, weaving together orchestral passages, bizarre sound effects, and intricate vocal harmonies into a cohesive whole. Paul McCartney's melodic genius shines on tracks like Lovely Rita and Getting Better, while John Lennon's surrealism dominates Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Even George Harrison contributes the philosophical Within You, Without You. Sgt. Pepper broke every rule, redefining what an album could be. It embraced studio technology, concept art, and an almost symphonic approach to pop music. While it might feel dated to some today, its influence is undeniable, and it remains a monumental achievement in the history of music.
Number 2, Abbey Road, 1969. Just missing out on the top spot, but arguably their most perfect-sounding album is Abbey Road, released in 1969. This was the last album the Beatles recorded together, a swan song of magnificent proportions despite the personal tensions that were tearing them apart. It's an album of 2 distinct halves, both brilliant. Side 1 features classic individual tracks, the raw power of Come Together, George Harrison's absolutely sublime Something, often considered one of his finest compositions, his other stunning track, Here Comes the Sun, and Paul's rocking Oh Darling. Ringo even gets a fantastic drum solo on the end. But it's side 2, particularly the famous medley, that elevates Abbey Road to legendary status. This continuous suite of short, interconnected songs, primarily crafted by Paul, showcases their genius for seamless transitions and intricate arrangements. Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, The End, it's a masterclass in album construction. The production by George Martin is absolutely pristine, making Abbey Road sound incredibly modern even today. It's an album that proves that even on the brink of collapse, the Beatles were capable of creating unparalleled beauty and sonic innovation. It's a testament to their enduring collaborative magic, a near-perfect final statement. Number 1, The Beatles, The White Album, 1968. And taking our top spot, the undisputed champion, the sprawling, magnificent, and utterly essential double album, simply titled The Beatles, but universally known as the White Album, released in 1968. This is not just an album, it's an entire universe. After the unified concept of Sgt. Pepper, the White Album exploded in every direction, showcasing 4 distinct artists at the peak of their individual powers. It's messy, it's brilliant, it's indulgent, and it's utterly groundbreaking. From the hard rock blast of Helter Skelter to the gentle folk of Blackbird, from the surreal experimentation of Revolution 9 to the pure pop genius of Obla Di Obla Da. This album contains multitudes. John Lennon delivers some of his most raw and personal songs. Julia, Happiness is a Warm Gun. Paul McCartney crafts melodic masterpieces.
Martha Nideer, Mother Nature's Son. George Harrison has two of his strongest early contributions, While My Guitar Gently Weeps and Savoy Truffle, and even Ringo gets his first solo composition with Don't Pass Me By. While some critics argue it should have been edited down to a single disc, its very sprawl is its strength. It's an honest, unvarnished portrait of a band coming apart at the seams, yet still capable of astonishing individual and collective brilliance. The White Album is the sound of the Beatles tearing up their own rule book, exploring every genre, and ultimately proving that their creativity knew no bounds. It is, for us, their most adventurous, diverse, and ultimately their greatest achievement.